Hello, welcome to this screencast that will take you through the general process of filling out an outline for your paper 2, followed by a rubric as well as a sample from Sunny Barbosa's paper that we annotated. First thing that I really need you guys to understand is that this is just a sample, so please don't follow it blindly, download it, and then adjust it as necessary. For instance, in this first source for Raven, I covered expertise, reputation, and ability to see. Maybe you're only going to focus on reputation and vested interest. So please, you have to adjust it to whatever it is you need to cover. All right, first off, notice that you're going to follow the traditional pattern of an introduction. So Roman numerals first for the body paragraphs, capital letters for the main points, then numbers for anything that follows that, and then lowercase letters for anything underneath that. You can keep going to lowercase Roman numerals as well. So please follow along and you'll be able to know how to do the traditional outline format. So for every source, you're going to cover the main premises, reasons, pieces of evidence, or examples. But again, you may need to adjust. Maybe your second source only has premises. Then that's all you're going to review. You probably need to review 4 or 5 of them. So just make sure you go over the main points. And when there is an important piece of evidence or example, you do go ahead and acknowledge that. Then, very important, make sure that you're corroborating with supplementary material, so outside research that you're adding on to the main source. But you should also, at some point, at least once, corroborate with the other main sources of the opposing side. Remember that it shows strength if a source does acknowledge something from the other side, even though they don't agree on the stance, they do agree that this point, this evidence is true. When you move on to your second perspective, you're going to follow the same thing, review the Raven of each source, and then review the main reasons, pieces of evidence, or examples. Along with corroborating, like in this example, I corroborate with source 1 or 2, you need to evaluate a strength mostly, a flaw every now and then, but please keep the focus on the strengths. You then also need to refute, once you get to your second perspective, what strong piece of evidence, what strong example helps refute the other side. On this third page, please make notice of the rubric. Remember that this is going to be an assessment grade, so look very closely at the requirements. In the past, sometimes students do very poorly on the outline. I've had students get a 60%, sometimes a 40%, because maybe they didn't include precise evaluation. Notice that's worth 15 points. Sometimes students forget to actually fill out their conclusion and they lose another 15 points. Or students don't corroborate. So you can see how quickly you lose points if you don't closely follow the requirements. So make sure to take the time to review the rubric and make sure that your outline does in fact check off all the requirements. After that, you see a sample from Sunny Barbosa's paper. We know that it scored really well. Here's what the outline would look like. Another thing that's important in the rubric is that you have to cite. You're going to get 10 points off if you don't cite. So notice we cite everything. So wherever I found the information from the author, I cite that. All the reasons, I cite. All the examples, I cite. All the pieces of evidence, I cite. Because this came from my source. This didn't come from prior knowledge I had. So rule of thumb, if I had to look it up, if I had to read it somewhere, I need to cite it. And remember that we cite the author and the page if we have the original PDF. If not, just the author's last name. If no author's listed, then we cite the title of the article, not the name of the website, not the name of the newspaper, the title of the article in quotation marks. And a page if we have the PDF, if not, just the title of the article. Last thing, in this sample, I've highlighted all of the evaluation, I've highlighted all of the corroboration, as well as the refutation. So look at it closely to see how that's done. Notice I don't quote long things. I keep it very, very fragmented and concise. The idea in an outline is I should be able to read through it in just 2 pages. And then when I go draft, I can go ahead and flesh it out. Notice my conclusion as well. I explain what I initially thought, how the research altered that viewpoint, and then finally where I ended up and what further research is needed. So if you do all that, you will score very well on this outline. Make sure you go to the Teams file to be able to read over it much more carefully. Thank you for tuning in.